April 25, 1945. Bendler Block, Berlin. The telephone rings once, twice, then again, too loud in the underground corridor, echoing off concrete walls damp with seepage. Colonel General Hans Krebs stops mid-sentence. Cigarette smoke hangs in the air, stale and sweet. No one moves. Everyone knows what that phone means. The line is direct, front-line signals, no pleasantries. Krebs lifts the receiver. A voice crackles through, strained, breathless, clipped by artillery concussion. Herr Generaloberst? Soviet units from the First Ukrainian Front have linked with forces north of Potsdam. A pause, the kind that feels longer than it is. Berlin is surrounded. No one in the room speaks, not at first. The Red Army has closed the ring. You can almost feel the city contract like lungs emptied of air. Above them, Berlin is burning. Somewhere to the east, Katyusha rockets scream like metal banshees. To the south, the sky flickers orange, even at night, as fuel depots and railway yards erupt in slow, rolling detonations. The city doesn't sleep anymore. It trembles. Krebs lowers the receiver slowly, as if sudden movement might shatter what little order remains. His eyes move across the room, to General Wilhelm Burgdorf, standing rigid near the map table, to Theodor Buse's last position pinned with a red flag, to penciled arrows of Soviet advances now overlapping like claw marks. Encirclement. The word isn't spoken aloud. It doesn't need to be. They've trained for this. War academies, war games, maps covered with neat symbols and controlled retreats. But this is something else. This is the end of a capital city, the end of a Reich, and every officer in the room knows it. At 04, artillery from the east intensifies. The Soviets don't shell blindly anymore. They don't need to. Every range is measured, every grid square registered. The Red Army has been preparing for this moment for years. Men hardened by Stalingrad, Kursk, Silo Heights. Their commanders, Zhukov, Konev, Rokossovsky, are no longer racing Berlin. They're tightening it, like a noose. Inside the Führerbunker, 40 feet beneath the shattered chancellery, Adolf Hitler sleeps, if what he does now can be called sleep. His hands shake even in rest. The tremor never leaves anymore. But the officers above him are awake. They're always awake.
General Helmuth Weidling, newly appointed commander of the Berlin defense area, stands alone for a moment at a narrow window slit overlooking the Tiergarten. Smoke drifts between blackened trees. The zoo is silent. No animals left alive to scream. Weidling is an artilleryman by training. He understands trajectories, encirclement geometry. He knows exactly what has happened without needing a report. He murmurs, almost to himself, "They've sealed it." His aide hears him and looks away. Weidling has been in command for less than a week. He never asked for this. He was nearly executed days earlier for allegedly ordering a retreat. Now he's responsible for a city of millions, defended by fragments, Volkssturm boys with Panzerfausts, Luftwaffe clerks with rifles older than they are, SS units fanatical but depleted, and now cut off. No breakout corridor, no relief, no Western link-up. Just Berlin. Just the Red Army. In the operations room, a junior officer pins a new report on the board. His hands shake. He's 22. Soviet armor sighted in Spandau. Another voice follows. Enemy patrols reported near Gatow airfield. Someone laughs quietly, a short, sharp sound. Gatow is where evacuation flights used to land. used to. Colonel Eberhard von Kurowski, a veteran of the Eastern Front, stares at the map and says what everyone else is thinking. They've done it properly this time. No bravado, no anger, just a fact. The Red Army doesn't announce its victories. It demonstrates them. At dawn, Soviet loudspeakers crackle to life along the perimeter. The German officers hear reports of it filtering in from regimental commanders, then battalion HQs, then desperate radio operators barely holding on to signal clarity. A female voice, calm, almost gentle. German soldiers in Berlin, you are surrounded. Lay down your arms. The war is over. Some units fire back at the speakers. Others turn the volume down.
A few listen. By mid-morning, Joseph Goebbels storms into the propaganda ministry bunker, his limp more pronounced than usual. His face is pale, lips tight. He demands updates. No information. Updates. There's a difference. When he hears the word encirclement, his eyes flash. Impossible, he snaps. The Führer would have been informed. But he knows. He's been listening to Soviet radio broadcasts for days. He knows what the Russians say about Berlin. He just hoped, desperately, that it wasn't true yet. Hope is all that remains in Berlin now, and it's thinning fast. At OKH, what's left of it, Krebs briefs Hitler late that afternoon. The bunker smells of damp concrete and stale air. Maps are spread across the table, edges curled, corners torn. Hitler stands hunched, hands behind his back, staring at the eastern approaches. When Krebs finishes, there is silence. Hitler doesn't shout. He doesn't rage. Instead, he asks a single question. Where is Wenck? General Walther Wenck, 12th Army, the phantom savior. Krebs hesitates. Still forming, mein Führer. Hitler nods slowly, then quietly. Then Berlin will be relieved. No one contradicts him, but no one believes it either. Outside, the Red Army advances block by block. German officers report Soviet tactics with a mixture of fear and grim respect. Tanks don't rush ahead blindly. Infantry clears buildings with grenades and flamethrowers. Engineers bridge canals under fire. Snipers work in teams patiently. This is not 1941. This is an army that has learned how to kill cities. And German officers, many of whom once dismissed Soviet command as crude, are now forced to admit it. They move like water, one major says, find every crack. As evening falls on April 25th, the truth settles in. Berlin is not a battlefield anymore. It's a pocket, a fortress without walls. And every German officer, from generals to lieutenants, feels the same creeping realization. There will be no retreat. There will be no maneuver. Only endurance. Only collapse. Only judgment. In a quiet moment, Helmuth Weidling dictates an order to his staff. All units will hold current positions. Breakouts are forbidden unless authorized at the highest level. Ammunition conservation is mandatory. He stops, then adds, God help us. The stenographer pauses, unsure whether to write that last line. Weidling doesn't correct him. That night, Soviet artillery resumes, heavier, closer. The ground shakes. Plaster rains from ceilings. Somewhere above, a building collapses with a sound like thunder trapped underground. German officers sit with their maps, listening, waiting, knowing that tomorrow the Red Army will not just surround Berlin, it will begin to crush it. And when that happens, every word they speak, every order, every hesitation will matter, because history is about to walk into the room and it will not ask permission. April 26, 1945, 0640 hours, Anhalter Bahnhof ruins. Morning arrives without light. The sun rises somewhere beyond the smoke, but Berlin never sees it. The city wakes to the sound of tank engines grinding over rubble and the rhythmic crack of Soviet artillery adjusting range. Each shell lands closer than the last, not by chance, by design. A German lieutenant crawls out from behind a collapsed ticket counter inside what used to be Anhalter Bahnhof. His greatcoat is gray with dust, his eyes rimmed red. He looks east and freezes. T-34s, dozens of them. They aren't charging, they're idling, waiting. The Red Army isn't rushing anymore. They know they have time. At Berlin Defense Area Headquarters, General Helmuth Weidling receives the first full situation report of the morning. The words are clinical, the implications are not. Enemy armor inside the S-Bahn ring. Multiple bridges across the Lendwehr Canal were lost. Contact with LVI Panzer Corps intermittent.
Weidling removes his glasses and rubs his eyes. Encirclement is no longer theoretical, it's physical now, measured in meters, in intersections, in stairwells. The Red Army has broken into the inner city, and the officers know what that means. Years later, one German staff officer would write, "It was at that moment we understood Berlin would not fall like Paris or even Warsaw. It would be dismantled, room by room." You can almost hear the realization spreading, invisible but contagious, through command posts and cellars across the city. This isn't a siege war, it's a dissection. At Führerbunker, the atmosphere thickens. Hitler is awake early, too early. His breakfast sits untouched. He stands over the map again, this time gripping the table edge so hard his knuckles whiten. General Krebs reports first. The Soviets have reached Tempelhof's perimeter. Hitler's head snaps up. Tempelhof? Yes, mein Führer. Tempelhof is not just an airfield. It's symbolic, it's central, it's supposed to be untouchable. Hitler stares at the map, lips moving silently, calculating distances that no longer matter. Then Bergdorf speaks. Army Detachment Steiner remains unable to attack. That sentence lands like a body hitting the floor. Hitler doesn't respond at first. Then, very quietly, Steiner will attack. No one answers, because there is no Steiner attack. There never was. Above ground, German officers begin making decisions they were never meant to make. At a battalion command post near Hallesches Tor, Major Klaus Meyer, a veteran of the Eastern Front since 1942, listens to a radio transmission dissolve into static. The voice on the other end screams something about flamethrowers and stairwells, then nothing. Meyer lowers the headset slowly.
He looks at the men around him, clerks, students, boys with helmets too large for their heads. "We hold," he says. Someone asks, "Until when?" Meyer doesn't answer. By mid-morning, Soviet propaganda leaflets rain down over the city, carried by artillery shells designed to burst mid-air. German officers collect them instinctively, as if they're intelligence reports. The text is blunt. Berlin is surrounded. Further resistance is useless. Your commanders have abandoned you. Some officers tear them up. Others fold them carefully and put them in their pockets, not as a surrender, as confirmation. At OKW, such as it still exists, the tone shifts. Messages from the front no longer ask for reinforcements, they ask for permission. Permission to withdraw, permission to consolidate, permission to break out. Most receive no reply. Those who do receive a single line, "Hold at all costs," a phrase so often repeated that it has lost all meaning. One officer, Oberstleutnant Rudolf Weiss, a career Prussian, leans over a map and says something almost heretical. We should negotiate. The room goes silent. Weiss doesn't look up. They will take the city anyway, he continues. Every hour we delay only determines how many civilians die. No one argues with him, but no one agrees either, because agreeing would mean accepting what comes next. At noon, Soviet forces reach the Spree River crossings. Engineers move under smoke cover. German artillery fires until barrels glow red, then fall silent, ammunition gone. A German captain radios in. "We are firing flares. We need shells." The reply is static. Then a voice. "No reserves available." That phrase spreads faster than any Soviet advance. No reserves. That's when officers stop talking about winning. They start talking about survival. In the bunker, Hitler finally erupts. The Steiner attack is confirmed impossible. Wenck is nowhere near Berlin. The Western Front has collapsed. The Americans are on the Elbe. Hitler screams about betrayal, about cowardice, about generals who lack faith. Krebs stands at attention, face blank. He's heard this before, but this time something is different. This time the shouting feels hollow. Even Hitler seems to know it. That afternoon, Helmuth Weidling is summoned to the Führerbunker. He enters pale, stiff-backed, knowing exactly why he's there. Days earlier, a misunderstanding nearly got him shot. Now he stands before a man whose world is closing in. Hitler orders him to hold Berlin. Weidling responds carefully. "Mein Führer, the city can be held, briefly, but there is no operational depth, no maneuver space. Ammunition will be exhausted within days." Hitler stares at him. "How many days?" Weidling swallows. 2, perhaps 3. Silence. For the first time, no one speaks of relief armies. No phantom divisions, no miracle weapons, just days. That night, German officers across Berlin write letters, some to wives, some to parents, some to no one in particular. They do not write of victory. They write of duty, of regret, of things left unsaid. In a cellar near Prenzlauer Berg, a captain finishes his letter, folds it, and hands it to a nurse. "If I don't come back." She nods. They both know he won't. As April 26th bleeds into the 27th, the Red Army tightens its grip. Searchlights sweep the sky, reflecting off smoke. Soviet artillery pauses, not because it has stopped, but because it no longer needs to fire blindly. Targets are known now. Command posts, intersections, bunkers. The hunters have mapped the maze. And the officers inside Berlin feel it. This isn't chaos, it's a method. And with that realization comes a darker understanding. The Red Army is not just surrounding Berlin, it is being prepared to finish it. April 27th, 1945, 14:10 hours, Wilhelmstrasse. The map is no longer useful. That's the first thing General Hans Krebs realizes as another report comes in. Inked arrows overwritten so many times they've torn the paper. Soviet units are no longer approaching objectives, they are the objectives. A staff officer clears his throat. Enemy armor sighted near the Reichstag. That building again. Always that building. For years it had stood like a hollow monument. Symbolic, yes, but militarily irrelevant. Now it is everything. Whoever holds it holds the meaning of Berlin. Krebs exhales slowly. So, they're here. No one corrects him. German officers begin saying things they would never have said a week ago. At a divisional command post near Moabit, an SS Sturmbannführer mutters, "This isn't a battle, it's an execution." No one challenges him. The Red Army is advancing with the confidence of inevitability. German counterattacks form, collapse, reform, each weaker than the last. Ammunition is counted in magazines now, not crates. And something else is happening. Discipline is cracking. Reports filter upward of units abandoning positions without orders, not fleeing, not surrendering, simply melting away. Men slipping into basements, removing insignia, becoming civilians in a city that no longer protects civilians.
No relief army, no breakout, no negotiation. German officers now face only two questions. How long can they delay the inevitable? And what will they say when it finally arrives? Because it is coming, and it is close. April 29th, 1945, 01:30 hours, Führerbunker. The walls shake as artillery lands somewhere overhead. Dust drifts down like ash. The bunker feels smaller now, claustrophobic. Hitler dictates his final political testament. The officers present stand rigid, eyes forward, listening to words that no longer shape events, only memory. Outside the bunker, Berlin is dying. Inside, the Third Reich already has. At dawn, Weidling receives the order he has been expecting and dreading. Hold the Reichstag at all costs. He reads it once, then sets it down. There are no costs left to pay. German officers relay the order anyway. They must. At the Reichstag, teenage boys clutch Panzerfausts with white knuckles. SS officers bark commands that echo off shattered stone. They know what's coming. So do the Russians. On April 29th, Hitler married Eva Braun. Several officers hear about it secondhand and react with disbelief, not anger, just disbelief. Marriage in a tomb. That night, Hitler calls Weidling in one final time. How long can Berlin hold? Weidling answers honestly. 24 hours, perhaps less. Hitler nods, then dismisses him. No shouting, no fury. Just acceptance. As Weidling leaves the bunker, an officer whispers, "Is it over?" Weidling doesn't reply, but his face says yes. April 30th, 1945, 15:30 hours. A gunshot echoes through the Führerbunker.
Then another. The news spreads in fragments, whispers, looks exchanged. Adolf Hitler is dead. German officers react not with shock, but with release. Some close their eyes, some sit down. One general reportedly says, "Then it's finished." Not angrily, not sadly, just a fact. Weidling now has authority, and he uses it. On May 1st, he sends envoys under a white flag to Soviet lines. The message is simple: Berlin will surrender. When Weidling meets General Vasily Chukov, commander of the Soviet 8th Guards Army, he stands straight, exhausted but composed. Berlin is finished. The war is finished. And the officers who once planned campaigns across continents now sign a single document: capitulation. Years later, survivors would recall what German officers said when they realized the Red Army had surrounded Berlin. They didn't speak of ideology. They didn't speak of glory. They spoke of time, of mistakes, of silence. One officer summed it up best: "We always believed the end would come loudly. Instead, it arrived quietly, when we finally understood there was nothing left to command." Berlin falls. The war ends. History moves on.